Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today we're going to be doing a series on the MiSTer FPGA DE10 Nano project, and I've got a fun and exciting video for you guys this evening, where we're going to be talking about the developments in Capcom CPS III as well as TMNT Turtles in Time. Because I would say when people talk about cores they want on MiSTer FPGA in the comments, about 50% of them are always talking about Capcom CPS III, and Jotego has made some updates as far as the development of that, and I'm going to go over some of them in this video. Before we get too far involved though, do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, we got a Patreon link down below as well. But it's one of those things, Capcom CPS III, for having a very limited library of 7 games, and basically more like 3 if you actually count some of the sequels here. It's absolutely outstanding hardware, and people are very enamored with both the games on the platform as well as the hardware in and of itself. But I will say right off the top, actually dealing with Capcom CPS III hardware is an absolute nightmare. It's hard to deal with, it likes to break constantly, it needs repairs basically every other time you look at the board, and if you even so much as touch it the wrong way, you could end up destroying part of the cart security and basically rendering your CPS III board completely inoperable. It is not a fun board to own. I sold mine probably like 3 years ago because it would take an eternity even boot up, so it's one of those things. Capcom CPS III in FPGA, 100% something that everyone would love to see. And I'm not surprised that we're hearing more about CPS III right now, because the Hitachi SH2 CPU at the heart of the CPS III is also utilized on MiSTer FPGA and the Sega Saturn in tandem. And it's one of those things, because MiSTer FPGA is an open source project, something that has been learned and gleaned from the development of a core that uses the CPU can be utilized in research and development of another core that is a different platform but uses the same parts. Now don't forget that the Hitachi SH2 is only one component of the overall Capcom CPS III. You're still going to end up with a lot of Capcom customs on the board that need to be written into FPGA before this will function, but knowing that the SH2 works on MiSTer FPGA, we already have it for the Sega Saturn, Sega Titan Video, and Sega 32X cores is a huge benefit. And I will say again, having CPS III and FPGA would be absolutely incredible from a hardware preservation standpoint, because unless you're an absolute hardcore arcade collector like me, you've probably never even seen a CPS III. And even if you love collecting arcade boards, ask anyone that actually deals with a CPS III board on a regular basis. They just kind of suck to actually deal with in real life. They are fun hardware to look at, but if you actually want to play the games, it is just mind-bendingly annoying at times. And of course, for tournament functions as well, CPS III would be incredible. And something like Second Impact also has the ability to do 16:9 support in the test menu. It's one of the only games, as far as arcades of this generation are concerned, that actually has true widescreen support. I'm sure most of you played it in 4x3, but it would be fun to see it coming out of MiSTer FPGA in widescreen. And that again is another reason why CPS III would be so exciting. But let's go over some of the hardware just to talk about what actually needs to be done to have a fully functioning core on MiSTer, because again, I don't know why Capcom designed the hardware this way. It is just an absolute mess in my opinion. So basically the games come on CD, but they have to be loaded into the flash sim memory every single time you boot the game up from a cold start. So all of that data on the CD to make the game function has to be loaded up into RAM, and I will tell you, this takes an absolute metric shit ton of time. My hardware would be about 30 to 35 minutes, depending on how good that SCSI drive was reading that day, before you actually had the data loaded in. And you'd have to have different size sims depending on the game you wanted to play, and the configuration could be a little bit touchy as well, but trust me, you don't want to wait 30 minutes for a game to boot up on an arcade board just so you can play for maybe an hour tops. It's always been something frustrating about the CPS III. While there are new aftermarket sims that will allow for faster loading, it is still one of those things. When you think of an arcade board, you think of flipping the switch and playing a game. That is not how Capcom CPS III works, but having fast loading in something like an FPGA core where you're not dealing with a CD would be great. And of course, because you do have a CD as well, you've got a spectacular soundtrack. Here's a sound sample of what might be coming out of MiSTer FPGA in 2025.
Get it out!
Into the heat of battle. Go for it!
Absolutely great music, but let's talk about the other platform that Jotego's talked about targeting for 2025, and that is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, as he calls it, or Turtles in Time, because we obviously already have the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles arcade beat-em-up, a legendarily good game, so having this sequel would absolutely be awesome on MiSTer, and this would definitely be part and parcel derivative of a lot of the other cores that Jotego has worked on, because it is similar hardware. But something about arcade hardware that I don't think most people understand unless they collect it is if you look at an arcade board on something like System 16, it'll tell you all the games that runs on that board. But unlike a console where the hardware is 100% locked off, a generation of arcade hardware boards will have different hardware on them even though they're part of the same nuclear family. So if you have a core from Jotego that runs one game and System 16 says 5 other games run on that board, there could be hardware additions or changes between all of those games, because arcade boards were always a moving target versus something like a console. So it is just the reality of the development. Just because one game works on a board doesn't mean that there isn't a lot of work that needs to be done to get other games running. But leave me a comment down below. What are you more excited about, the idea of Capcom CPS III in 2025 or Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Turtles in Time? If I had to say, CPS 3 obviously gives us more games, but my favorite game between all of these is still got to be Turtles in Time. I just absolutely love that as a beat 'em up, and honestly, I've only ever been mid at best and worst on a bad day at something like Street Fighter 3, because I definitely still prefer the Alpha series, and I'm sure there'll be some comments about that below. But you're going to get JoJo's Bizarre Adventure on Capcom CPS 3, and that probably is my favorite game out of all of these. It's an absolute wild blast of an arcade fighting game, so many fun characters and moves, and it would be great to have that on MiSTer, because like I can't stress enough, the Capcom CPS 3 is delicate hardware. These things continue to break, and I bet in 10 to 15 years, finding one for sale that even works is going to be a chore, because if you want a full multi CPS 3 right now that's basically been prevented from breaking on that security cartridge, you're talking about $1,500 or a little bit above that depending on the condition. And trust me, even I as an arcade collector really don't like dropping that sort of money on arcade hardware unless it's an incredibly rare game. And the reality is all of these games have been ported to other home consoles and other platforms as well, so only the die-hard players out there are going to want to pick up Capcom CPS 3 hardware. Now, as far as targeting 2025 is concerned, that means Jotego's hoping to do it in 2025, but the reality of FPGA development, or any development, is that delays can happen. So this is in no way, shape, or form me saying by the end of the year you're going to be playing at least CPS 3 or Turtles in Time on MiSTer FPGA, and if you are, it'll probably be a beta, there'll probably be bugs, and maybe not every single Capcom CPS 3 game will work, but Jotego's going to be publishing more details for his Patreon members, and it's one of those things I would never reveal what he writes in those post on the channel because it is a membership thing. I would be really bummed out if people just copy and pasted my Patreon details about videos I'm working on ahead of time in series and just let everyone read it. So if you're not supporting Jotego, I left a link to his Patreon down below as well, because he definitely does some great stuff. But one more soundtrack sample to give you an idea of what you might be hearing out of MiSTer FPGA in 2025, and I'll come back and tell you a few more details.
Round 1, fight.
If there's one thing you can say about Street Fighter 3 is it absolutely has great music on all 3 entries, and it's one of those interesting things. When these games came out, it didn't seem like fans loved them near as much as they do now. The love for Street Fighter 3 has definitely grown over the years, and it's always been a disappointment to me personally that for as good of 2D hardware as Capcom made on the CPS 3, we didn't get any other genre other than fighting games, and even though the fighting games we got were great, I just wish they had done more with the hardware, because honestly, it was the last piece of arcade hardware Capcom ever designed in-house before they moved over to using other people's hardware from there. But hopefully soon you'll be playing it on MiSTer FPGA, and I know that's going to get a lot of you excited. Like I said, I spent more time talking about the CPS 3 than Turtles in Time. That's because I know most of you are going to want to know about CPS 3 details, but as far as when these cores might be available even in beta, I have absolutely no idea. I'm sure even Jotego doesn't have a perfect idea of what month, if it is 2025, that they will be out, because development's always hard. But you know the details now, and I'm sure you're stoked. I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.